you for that.
He hasn't given me that hat yet, huh? How many know? Good to see you guys. Yeah.
So are we live at this point, Alex?
We are now live, yes, Senator.
Now you guys get to see what goes on behind the scenes before you get into Zoom. Uh-oh.
No.
Now we have to take a pause.
All rise. All rise.
We are on YouTube. You have to let my other
You see
committee
Dick
members.
McCormick sent him in here, huh? He's late again.
No, I won't see him.
Oh, you've already started? For the 44th time.
We just started, we are
So-
live.
You were on tonight, Frank.
What's that?
I want
You were on tonight, Frank?
a couple things. I want some of those candies.
As a rule, right early.
Thank you. And I want to ask Senator Mazza, if he wants to come in, we're going to dissolve the Colchester Fire District right now. Do you want to come in and argue against that or?
No, whatever they want.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just checking.
He knows how to get a dry hydrant anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Hey, we got board business today. We're on the walleyes today.
All right.
Yeah, try not to interrupt us.
We are live on YouTube. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Vermont State Senate Committee on Institutions. Today is Friday, April 8th. I'm Joe Benning, the host for this afternoon's proceedings, the chair of the committee and the Caledonia County Junior State Senator. We have with us today Senator Mazza from Colchester Grand Isle, Senator Ingalls from Essex Orleans, Senator Parent from Franklin County, Senator McCormick from Windsor County. We're going to be talking about a couple of different components of the capital bill, but we wanted to spend the first part of our Friday with our favorite couple of witnesses. In all the things we do, we enjoy you guys the most, just so you know that. Now I've said it on live YouTube, so the world knows all about
He
it.
tells everybody that, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Go back and watch the tapes.
Yeah.
For committee purposes, we are on line 87 of your spreadsheet. And we are going to get a new spreadsheet shortly. But at the point of this conversation, Bob Sampson, President of Lake Champlain Walleye Association, and Cubby Smith, Vice President of Lake Champlain Walleye Association, are here for really two reasons. Number one, I wanted to make sure you guys were going to survive okay. And number two, it has been 2 long years since we've all gathered in the same room, and I know you hadn't met some of us personally, but it was important for me on my way out the door to at least say thanks and make sure you guys got introduced face to face to these guys here. So welcome back. Tell us what, if anything, you can about anything that's been going on since the last time we met you on screen.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is thank you for seeing us.
You do need to introduce yourself officially. For the record. You do need to introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself. Oh, I'm Bob Sampson, President of the Walleye Association in Vermont.
I'm Cubby Smith, Vice President of the Champlain Walleye Association.
Welcome back, guys. The floor is yours.
Okay. It's been a crazy year for just about everything, especially with our program. We've been able to keep moving forward, but it's been hard. The one thing we're lacking, like everybody, is money. We have not had our banquet for 2 years. It's our major fundraising event, and it's hurt us in the way. I don't know how to put this, but we don't really. We want to keep going forward all the time, and we're pushing all the time to improve. And I think we're at a point now where we have learned how to raise walleyes in captivity. They call it intensive culture, and it's unbelievable, the success. Here is a picture. These two fish right here, just to give you an example, these two fish are exactly the same age. Nobody in this country has been able to raise walleyes in captivity. It doesn't work. Nebraska, I think, has spent $2 million and they couldn't figure out how to do this. to make a long story short, a manager at Ed Weed, Kevin Kelsey, figured out how to do this, how to raise them. And we've supported him for the last like 5 years. He'd take a few fish and try this and try that. Well, he's figured out how to do it. And these are the fish we can raise these in 5 weeks to this age. They have their colors, they survive, they're camouflage, so they survive much better than the ones from the pond. So we've really shifted our efforts to intensive culture with the state. We have put in these self-cleaning tanks. They're very hard fish to raise. And they're the biggest predator in Lake Champlain when they get older. But until they get about 6 or 8 inches long, they are very hard to they're very hard to raise. One little mistake raising them and you can lose all your fish. But we've been really lucky. We've had just 1 year we lost some fish. But we've shifted our emphasis on intensive culture. We've put probably 130,000 into the intensive culture in the last year and a half. This year, we want to finish what we started. We want to put in these self-cleaning tanks. These self-cleaning tanks are, in order to raise them to this size, we have to have these self-cleaning tanks. If you don't have them, that's not it. It's expensive. And so we bought 4 a year ago. It's probably more like 2 years ago. The COVID-19, we've depleted our general fund down to where we can't really do much. The $25,000 that people give us every year and have given us, it's allowed us to match it and to improve the intensive culture. Right now we need 2 tanks. We have on order a drum filter that which is $14,000, and that's on order right now that we're paying for. And we want to do 2 more tanks at Mount Hill, and that will require a drum filter and UV. The whole UV part of it, I don't know how that works, but we could really use another $25,000. If we had that, we could do this. I won't say it's a yearly thing. I don't want to jeopardize our grant that you've given us. I don't want to jeopardize that at all, because we really need it to improve and to get the hatchery the way we want it. But we could really use $25,000 more.
How much do you collect from individuals or donations from people? Do you have anybody else give you any money?
Say that again.
Any other individuals give you money, donations from the public, or you raise any money that way?
He says their banquet's their biggest.
Yeah, our banquet, we make, this year, we are rescheduled. We finally got to where I think we're gonna schedule it. It's scheduled for the first Saturday in August. And we have a lot of items. I think we have like 25 guns. And people love to win a gun. And so we have a lot of our merchandise right now, so we're hoping to make, we usually make 12 to 15, and I would say we want to make at least $15,000. It's kind of,
You have to buy the guns to raffle them off?
yes, we get, actually, the guns that we have, I know our sponsor guns, we call them, there's 12 of them. They're up $100, so it was, we've sat on them for 2 years. And we've sat on a lot of merchandise. And so we're really looking forward to our banquet because it's a banquet that does it for us.
You bring any tickets to sell?
Yes.
Good.
Any one of you that would want to come to the banquet, we'd love to have you come.
We'll buy some tickets.
Who used to always come, always came.
Oh, Pat Brennan comes.
It's, yeah, right. It's always a good event.
That
We,
banquet too, we do get donations. We don't buy everything, but we got it. And that honor that you so generously bought tickets for us.
Yeah, that's a good one.
and our banquet is a big hit. The people really support us. Our fishery, I haven't talked about the fishery. I've talked about raising fish. That's always, that's my main goal. But the fishery is just unbelievable.
Run us again, how many fish you raise a year?
We raise around 250,000 fingerlings. And if you don't, we used to, if I want to go back on a little bit of history, 18 years ago, when we started stocking, we stocked a fry. A fry is a fish that's 5 days old. Then we went from there to the advanced fry. Never in all of our testing and 15 years of checking fish, we've never had one of those fish return. They don't survive. The fingerlings, that's just the opposite. When we check in the rivers, like Winooski, it's been 100% our fish. Missisquoi and Swanton, about 70% are our fish. So add that on top of the spawning population, we're really gaining when we get this system done and we get the tanks and the biofilter, we're planning on another 150,000 fish a year. And these fish survive. They survive because they got their colors. When they're little like these, they're silver and predation is quite high. But these survive. And the fishing, I'll give you an example. Just last week, they went into Pulteney River. And Pulteney River has some natural reproduction, but they took 215 walleyes out of Pulteney River last week. I mean, they just marked them, checked them for disease and that type of thing. I would say by next Friday, we'll have, it's going into Missisquoi. They'll get all the fish they need in one day. And I mean,
For egg stock?
for egg stock.
Yeah.
And this is the first year, all the fish we got, which would be 25 pairs, we get them, and after they got stripped them for eggs, they had to kill them. and make sure they weren't diseased. Now, we don't do that anymore. We don't seem to have a problem at all. Lamprey's under control. It's, everything is going good. The only thing is COVID. It just put a stop on improving. And,
Are they like salmon? Do they come back to the same murders that you?
Yes.
stock them with?
they'll imprint if you stock them,
They
But
made
we're-
it with three strains, Colby, Winooski, and
Yeah.
Cisco, and what they take out of that, so it's a 3-year cycle.
Mhm.
This year it's gonna be the Cisco. Cisco, that.
So they don't hit all three rivers all at the same time, they're different cycles?
Oh, and
Like Bobby said, they might experiment down there, and another river this year they're planning on doing, which is gonna put a lot of stress on them, is the Lamoille.
Right.
And so because the fisheries has depleted quite a bit, fishermen are complaining, and so they're looking at stocking that also.
I mean, we had our biologist, Bernie Pranka, who was up at, they were in Missisquoi River, a couple days ago. And Bernie made a point, he said, geez, Bob, he said, you know, I came out of there feeling really good. There was 4 cars that came down with people in them, and they were thanking us and saying how great the fishery is. And he said, I don't usually get that. And it's the way it is, it's working. I mean, last year, I probably had the best year of fishing walleyes I've had since I was a kid. I mean, you could go in there in 2 hours if you wanted to keep all your fish, you'd have your limit.
You probably go with the hatchery, throw them in there.
No, no, they won't let me in there.
Bob, how many
We're working towards that, though.
self-cleaning tanks are you trying to buy?
How many?
How many self-cleaning tanks are you trying to buy?
We have 4 now. We need 6 more. And we're gonna get every single one we can get. And we have had the blessing from our commissioner. I haven't seen our new commissioner. I shouldn't say that. I haven't met our new commissioner, but we've had full support from Fish and Wildlife on this. We've worked very close with them. And just to find ways to fix this or do this so it's more efficient. The self-cleaning tanks, they cut out a lot of labor. Because
How
when,
much for each one?
I knew you were gonna ask that. They're $8,000 a piece.
Okay.
That's a basic tank with the cleaners, but they're indispensable.
Do you have capacity within the fishery, within the fish hatcheries to put those in?
Yeah, yes, we do. Because see, we're not just regular tanks at this point in time, they're just regular 500-gallon tanks. These gonna replace, and we added 2 last year, but the self-cleaning tanks, to be honest with you, I don't even wanna try to raise fingerlings without the self-cleaning tanks. It makes that much difference.
That's the point, listen, the point, the self-cleaning tanks, otherwise they'd be doing manually like this, and those fish, there's mortality when they have to do it manually, so it does save on labor, saves on time. And they're also electronically fed, so it's really advanced, but the big thing is the survival rate. And it saves them a lot of labor. That's the idea of that, it's really amazing.
It's amazing how they survive. I can't get an answer from a biologist to say what the percentage of these fish survive. They don't dare to give them because it's a high number. I mean, it's more like 18 years ago. I fished the river since I was a kid. 18 years ago, if you caught a juvenile fish, I mean, it was an event. You know, you just didn't see them. But with all mature fish, that's what happened. We were going downhill. And when we started stocking these last year, everybody caught small fish. Everybody caught juveniles, and it's way beyond anything I could have ever thought of. Because when I was a kid, we had a 10 fish limit. And I can remember skipping school. I'd get in more trouble than you can imagine. But I'd come out of that river and I could just barely carry the fish over the bank. So that's how it was. And we're seeing that now. We're getting, that's the only thing that I had talked to Lewis Porter about is how can we figure out the impact? And to me, that's really important.
How many guys you got working with you? Volunteers?
We're all we're all volunteers.
Yeah, but how many volunteers are there?
Oh my gosh, there's
We put the word out. And
active.
they show up, you know.
Yeah, it gets better, but you can't really. It's, if I had to guess, I'd say we don't have more than 25 maybe. You'll maybe get 25 or 30 people that, you know, you're counting the whole state.
When we do that fund for the gyms, I was done. I could see it really is. I don't know how many show, it's all of 25.
Yeah.
You know, but once we have something to do, we put the word out there.
We have,
It's less, it's a lot less now that it's done in just in Texas culture. So we work with them hand in hand, trying to finance all of it.
we help our Ball Hill, not so much Ball Hill. It's a smaller scale, but Kevin, the manager out here, if they need help, we help at different times, different stages, but we're there all the time if for anybody. And if they need help, we get it there. But we can't go in the boats because of liability to shop. So we have to do stuff on the shore.
Yeah.
And it's things like that that we can't do. We could do it, but liability comes into play. I actually have, it explains just what we do, if anybody wants them.
Pass one down there. I'd like to see it.
This will tell you exactly what we do. I got some.
You know, I know it sounds like a pain, but you know, I think Alex furnished you guys with that walleye. I know Senator Benny, you asked, it's 300 some odd pages, but it's pretty well explained, just that little narrow.
Yeah.
It's pretty well explained in that too.
Where is your banquet?
Where?
Yep.
Is in St. Albans, the American Legion, right off the interstate.
Okay.
And it's the first Saturday in August this year, so we don't have to worry about weather. Can't wait to have it. Every one of you are welcome.
We'll be there.
You just let us know and that you're coming.
Oh.
It's a good time. It's a good time. And, I'll tell you one other thing that is happening. We have Kevin last year, Kevin keeps, it's a challenge to raise these. Kevin, at the manager of the Ed Weed Hatchery, there was about 1,000 fingerlings left in a tank. And he said, Bobby, I wanna try raising those. So he darkened the room and he put a cone of light and he put the feed down there. He got out of, and this just is experiment, he got 900 6-inch walleyes out of that tank. And he was able to raise them, and he said he couldn't believe it. They were beautiful fish. And the fish at that size, there's gonna be close to 100% survival. How far we can go with that, I don't know. But it's exciting to see him do that. He's got states, different states that are calling him, and what are you doing, or how are you doing this? And it's all about feed. The feed, the Japanese know how to grow fish. And that's where the feed originated from. It's a different color. It's quite a process. This whole thing is quite a process.
He blended it too, he kind of came up with.
Yeah, he's indispensable.
They call
I
it.
said, don't you even think of ever going out of here until we're done with you, you know?
He guaranteed us he's got 10 more years before he retires.
Well, try to get him to develop a stamp so that he can stamp the side of the fish for Ingles Real Estate or Follow Me to Maz's store or something like that. So they float out there.
Well,
That's a convenient stop though for the Winooski. Did a stop in to get a 6-pack.
Yep.
Way home, yeah. That's.
He knows it. Committee, any other questions? I heard you have not yet met the new commissioner.
Gonna be here in a few
He's gonna
minutes.
be here about, well, I don't know if Alex got him earlier. He's due at 1:45, but he may show up a few minutes early. So you may end up passing him in the hallway.
Good. Good.
In the meantime, we have to put up with another commissioner.
it's something,
But-
it's something we probably should have done before now, but where we definitely want to be.
Well, I'm sure he'll be happy to meet you.
Yeah, because we're working very hard with this. Our grants have made it possible. And we put all of our money into this, and we've had 2 years. It's like we're stagnant, and we're not going anywhere, but we are. It's just not fast enough.
It's with COVID too, it hasn't allowed us to go backwards, it's kept us
Right.
pretty good shape.
Understood. Well, we can't make any promises, but we'll see what we can do.
We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the help that we can get. You're all invited to our banquet. And
How much are those tickets to the banquet?
it's all you gotta do is call us.
How much are those tickets though to the banquet?
For you people, there isn't, because
No, I wanna win a gun.
what's gonna happen.
How much for the gun tickets?
That's just what I was gonna say. You can play all the games. You come to the banquet and it's like, don't worry, we don't let you go.
We don't go to the banquet, can we buy tickets?
Right, can we buy tickets to the gun?
You can buy, we have games,
Ice cream.
we have like a mystery tent that has probably a power auger, a couple of guns, all kinds of stuff. We everybody says, we'll say, you know, we'll buy a ticket, I mean, tickets are for sale, but we'll have, like yourself, well, I'll buy a ticket. And we just would like to have you come, we'll have a place for you, and then we'll get all your money before you leave.
You know what time the banquet is?
It's at, it's at, oh yeah, I forgot. It's 4:30. We start 4:30, play games and stuff.
There's buckets you put your tickets in, you can buy.
Oh, we play all kinds. We play the card game. Clip a card in half. And, it's just a fun time. There's no,
So you didn't bring any tickets today?
yeah, I think I got some tickets. I think I gave them to, no, I didn't give them to Cubby. Let me see if I did.
All right, gentlemen, we have to shift gears to our next topic of conversation. But I want to thank you for coming by. It was nice to see you guys in person.
Just fill it out so I know you, give me the attendance one, give me that ticket. Then I'll know where you're coming from.
Doesn't really need a ticket.
No, you don't need a
Well, I'm
ticket,
not gonna,
you can just
I
have
don't
it.
wanna win anything, I'll send this back to you, okay?
Okay.
Is that what we do?
Yeah, it's not till August.
Okay, I'll fill this out and I'll send it back to you and I'll send you some money. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough.
Okay.
There's a live auction also. Yeah, there's plenty of ways at that banquet to get your money though.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanna support you
Oh, yeah,
guys.
there's, yeah, we have a sponsored ticket that's $285, gives you a dinner ticket, one chance at 5 to win a gun, and that's a big hit. We get probably 75 to 80 of those tickets are sponsored tickets.
So if you get a check for $1,000 from Ingles Real Estate, you all get a free seat.
If you give us $1,000, I guarantee you'll have a gun.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Hey, thanks for
Pleasure to meet you
having
guys.
us.
There is another commissioner who should be walking down the hall real soon. So if you see somebody that looks like they're lost, that's probably him.
Yeah, okay.
Say hi to him. He's on his way here, sure.
And also, thank you for letting us come in because this virtual thing.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we actually were able to shave this appointment down in half because we didn't have to watch you struggle on that computer.
I know.
I thought you said we improved their skills.
You did the second time?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've come a long
It
way.
was nice that we actually got to see more than just this part of it.
I have spent too much time fishing and I'm
Bill's
laughing
computers.
at
You
computer
won't see us
skills.
along. We got the latest and the greatest, but I got an old computer.
Yep.
I said, I want to buy a new one. You don't need one. And so we had to get the camera and hang it on the top, but I know what you're. He won't me buy a new computer. Just keeps upgrading. So, okay.
Well, your first time at trying it was pretty entertaining for those of us
And
watching.
he's on the phone, so, and we don't know how to mute the damn thing, you know, and it was embarrassing.
Oh, it was worse. I said.
I thought it was actually a comedy show, but I didn't know what it was. I thought at first, like,
trying,
I was gonna tell you what, I am gonna be the producer of this thing. I'm gonna call Eric Philhorn, and we're gonna put this thing nationwide, and we're gonna make millions.
I told Cubby, I said, Cubby, I'll go way out of my element here, you gonna bail me out.
But it'd be the old Red Green show. I don't know if you ever saw Red Green show.
Oh, well, you know, I can race fish and really do a good job about it, but when it comes to this, I'm not, I can't.
We're not too talented.
I gotta tell it the way it is, good or bad.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very
Really
much.
good.
And all of you, if you remember August and you just get a hold of us from Mike
We'll
or
be there.
whoever. And,
I'll send you this ticket
come
back.
to the banquet, you'll have fun.
Okay,
Thanks for the invite.
Well, that's the
Thank you.
only place we can tell you you're gonna have fun.
okay, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thanks.
Take care now.
Commissioner Schneider. Welcome back.
Thanks.
We have to follow the name on the screen.
How do I follow that?
Frank
They just took
Sundström.
25,000 of your money, so
Yeah.
sliding it to them.
I'm a little disappointed. You mentioned those fish that, Ingles Real Estate, Mount Historic. You could have gone Vermont State Parks too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we could have.
$285.
I can just see the little, it's like an airplane up in the sky with a little sign off the back, follow me to Maz's store. Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were back on today, and you probably could have said yesterday what you were gonna present.
You did, actually. I think.
Were we gonna talk about the language issue?
Oh, that's right, we were gonna talk about the language, which brings us to Becky up on the screen. I wanna make sure we're all on the same page.
Yes, absolutely, please.
And Becky, could you remind me what page that discussion is
It was
on?
page 7. It was the wastewater. Right?
This is the strike over.
Yeah, so my understanding was that it was on page 7 in section 9 of the bill, or
Yep.
sorry, section 6, amending section 9 of the bill.
Becky, could you introduce yourself for the record?
Sure, Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel.
So we ended up with two struck words in the language, and we're trying to figure out, number one, why did they strike the language? And number two, what does it actually mean that it has been struck?
So the reason behind striking it was that there are ARPA dollars, federal funding that can be used for water and sewer infrastructure projects. And one of the recommendations from the governor was to, swap out capital dollars and use ARPA funds for certain projects. And one of the things that was proposed was for forest parks and recreation for water and sewer related projects. And so the idea was to take it out of the line item from fiscal year 23 using capital dollars and appropriate it in, it's appropriated in the budget bill, but the authorization for the appropriation is in section 12 of the bill. And so the idea is that it would be covered by those ARPA dollars instead. And that can be found on page 12 of the bill. On page 13 of the bill in fiscal year 23, subdivision 4. The Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation is authorized to make wastewater repairs and water and sewer infrastructure improvements and upgrades to restrooms and bathhouses at state parks. So the idea was that the wastewater repairs, the authorization is to do that work in this other section of the bill using federal funds that are being appropriated in the big bill.
All right, so is there any possibility that that might not survive the big bill?
I guess there's always a possibility that would happen. I think that the understanding was that the ARPA state and local fiscal recovery funds are all being appropriated in the budget. So there was, so it was not appropriate to appropriate them in this bill, but that the idea of this section 12 is that it's laying out that the projects are all authorized to be done in the capital bill, and that the authorization is connected to the appropriation in the budget.
So if they're authorized, why is the language struck on page
Because
7? I'm confused.
the language in page 7 is authorizing it for authorizing it to be paid for out of capital dollars.
So
And the
there's
idea
no-
is that that line item was decreased and the amount is, it's just essentially being offset. It shouldn't be taking any money away from Forest Parks and Recreation. It's just moving around how it's being paid for. And so I think if you want to add it back in, then it would, I think that you can make that decision, that policy decision, but it would be potentially taking, it's just meant to offset what was already authorized. So if you're adding it back in, then you're potentially using money from that line item that was to go towards one of those other projects to do additional wastewater repair projects using capital dollars. So I don't know if that is needed and that's what the department wants to do, but it's not meant to, it wasn't meant to take anything away. It was just meant to swap out the source of funds.
So it was not meant to prevent them from conducting anything along that line. We're just taking it from one revenue source and designating a different revenue source.
Exactly.
That answered the initial concern, Michael, that you probably ought to introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, thanks. Michael Snyder, Commissioner of Forest Parks and Recreation, along with State Parks Director Nate McKean and Parks Projects Manager Frank Spalding. That's what we just want to make sure we're whole and that we're fully authorized to do the work we need to do. I think this explains it with the swap. The ARPA money in the big bill replaces this reduction, and the language is still there to authorize. As long as it's not needed in the big bill, and we have that authorization here, I think we're good. I'm going to ask Nate and Frank to jump in and correct me if they see something different.
Frank, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused by the language strike because by not striking the language, it doesn't necessarily eliminate the possibility of using ARPA to offset wastewater projects because the enabling language still exists in the later section. But what striking the language does do is reduce our flexibility to address emergencies that arise that ARPA money, since it's not authorized in the big bill, would not be available to address, and therefore we would have to tap capital to take care of emergency sewage repairs. And were that language to remain struck, that would in essence prevent us from making those necessary repairs if the only money we have left is capital FY23 funds. That's the crux of my concern. It's really essentially, I view it as an unnecessary impedance to our ability to respond to the 100-something wastewater systems we have in the system that could at any time break down, and the flexibility afforded in the capital bill allows us to pivot and address those emergencies. That's my concern.
That's an excellent point, and you have something in mind, language that perhaps could protect us there? Is this the including but not limited to kind of idea? Could that apply here?
I was giving potential language a thought, and other than just an entire separate sentence stating the intent of the legislative body in the language, because for example, drinking water systems is not included in the list of projects that's in the language for the appropriation for FY23. So the logic that ARPA could be used for drinking water and wastewater systems, yet only wastewater is struck out and drinking water doesn't appear. I'm not sure beyond authorizing it for ARPA and funding it through the big bill, there's really anything more that could be done to make that happen.
So I think I'm a little confused now. So when you, for example, are talking about the drinking water, that
Yes.
is not That is not currently, that was not in last year's bill for the FY23 appropriation for this line item.
Right, so if, I mean, that gets to my confusion. If we interpret that language, the language should actually read, including but not limited to these projects. We should be more on top of that as we go forward, because not all our projects can neatly fit into certain categories like that. The fact that drinking water isn't included in there, if we are interpreting that language to be absolute, then we shouldn't be doing any drinking water system projects at all with that capital money, is how I hear that being read back.
So I think, well, I think it does say in this line item, infrastructure rehabilitation, including, and it has a non, exclusive list of items. And I recall, I think this was changed a few years ago for your department, that there was sort of one line item to allow for that flexibility between projects. And I don't think the intent was to ever limit any flexibility here. I think it was just to recognize that these dollars are really just meant to be to offset what is already in the bill and take it out of the capital bill pot and put it into the federal funding pot of money. And so if it's that there are some water and sewer infrastructure projects that are not reflected in this line item that should be reflected in the ARPA authorization, then I think it's a matter of just adding to that authorization the other types of projects that should be included. But if you're saying that you want flexibility to possibly do these projects out of capital dollars, then I think that's where I'm a little confused, because I thought the recommendation that came over was that the amount that was being recommended to offset was specific to those projects that would be eligible for these funds. And so it might just be that I can't say for sure whether it would be okay to have like more flexibility with the federal funds and use those dollars on other projects without knowing what those projects are.
So Beck, maybe to short circuit this, could you check with whoever ledge counsel is that's doing the big bill and just make sure the provision is in there and ask them to alert you should that change for any reason? It seems to me like their first concern was that they needed to be able to do these particular projects, and we're wondering why that language was struck. I think we've solved that initial concern because you got it coming from a different resource. But I do want to make sure for their benefit that resource remains available, and we're not missing something after the ARPA funds have been dealt with.
Yeah, so I I have been working with JFO and with the appropriations committees on this issue, so I can confirm that it was in the House version, and I can sort of double check that the Senate is doing the same thing. I think the issue, though, it seems like that is perhaps one issue. And then the second issue is just where the department needs flexibility. Like, is it in the federal funding line item or in the capital funded line item?
Well, I think one concern is does striking the language here mean that we couldn't use FY23 capital funds on wastewater repairs as may be needed? That's the question we need to get clarity on, right?
I think if you think you want to use it for wastewater repairs in FY23 from capital dollars, you should put it back in.
Hey, we don't know, but we may need, that's what Frank was explaining, and I think that's very real. Do it. Please, that's our request.
I think the only.
We're not going to check your job.
I think the only issue is that which again, I don't have the answer to, is that the amount that came over to recommend swapping out and offsetting those capital dollars was a very specific amount of money in federal funds. And I'm guessing it was based on some some
Our ability to.
estimate
do it, I
of
think, yeah.
projects that would be done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, I think it's just that I'm guessing that your flexibility is that you might be doing more projects, not, and that you will exhaust the federal funding that is being given to you for these repairs.
I think that's right.
Okay.
So what do? Do we put it back in or do we leave it the way it is?
I don't see an issue legally with putting it back in if the idea is just to give flexibility in case all the federal funds are used for these projects and they need that source of funding to do these projects out of capital dollars as well.
I can understand that, but it brings up the question, why did the House nevertheless decide to remove it? Was there some motive for doing that?
I think it was just, I mean, I can't speak to their intent, but I think it was just the amount that was recommended for this line item to come from federal dollars was meant to cover all of those types of projects for Forest Parks and Recreation. And I don't know if they had a discussion about whether flexibility was needed.
Okay. Michael, any other concerns you got about that?
I think we're hearing what we needed. Frank, Nate?
Yeah.
You agree?
I would agree, yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beck.
I'm gonna agree with Senator Miles at the end of the day, just do it. Don't worry about it.
I did make note of that. We are gonna check your project.
Anything else you need to tell us about or be worried about or whatever?
How much time do you, no, I think we're good. Boys, are we good?
I think
We're
we're good.
Awesome.
Thank you. Excellent. Thanks for being there. Thank you, senators. We appreciate it.
You guys do realize that I bring this back to the House committee. We're gonna end up in a knockdown, drag out conference committee that is gonna hang up the legislature for 4 months. You guys realize that, right?
We'll help you out there.
Okay.
Thanks, so that's not my problem.
Yeah.
We probably have a few other things in here that are gonna cause the creek to say things.
I'm guessing this won't be the one.
It's not, you're not gonna be standing there all by yourself, like setting up.
I could use it per diem.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Nate, Frank, thanks for coming back.
Thank you
Thank you.
all.
I raised a little concern with him, what we talked about earlier as well, so.
You good?
Well, I think we have that figured out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend, Joseph.
Right.
Cheers. Thank you.
Committee, we're gonna switch to section 9, Agency of Natural Resources with Commissioner Chris Herrick, who I see is online.
There he is, the man.
Chris, we're sorry you didn't make it to actually meet the guys who do our walleye.
They want to meet you badly.
They do.
We told them all about you.
Sorry.
We didn't have enough time.
Oh, well, I'm heading up to Orleans tomorrow for the 8 o'clock breakfast.
Orleans? Just tell them, you know, Senator Engels, you get free breakfast.
Good. I might have to make that trip.
I might have to be down there. I gotta be somewhere else at 9, but I might be able to swing through there.
What's
That'll be
the
good.
breakfast?
That's the the Sportsman's Club thing. that we
Oh,
have
Joe
there.
wants to be there.
I gotta be in Windsor at their breakfast tomorrow morning. Suddenly I'm wanted places.
Breakfast in Windsor?
Yep,
What?
VFW, Windsor County GOP breakfast.
Oh, the Republicans?
Yep.
I should stop in and say hi.
Yep, Windsor president. Well, if you stopped in to say hi, they'd probably be shooting arrows at you instead of me. I'd have you help.
There you go.
I'm trying to remember where we are on line.
So I'll first of all, thanks for making time for us. For the record, I'm Chris Herrick. I'm the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife. If we go down to section 9 and subsection G, as in golf. We're looking for a bit of a language change. In the suggested language would be, the following amounts are appropriated in fiscal year 2023 to the Agency of Natural Resources for the Department of Fish and Wildlife for the projects described in this subsection. And so it's putting in.
You know what page you're on?
I'm sorry, Senator, I don't. I just have the language. I wonder, Steve, if you know.
I don't, off the top of my head. I can take a quick look.
It's right here, hold on a second.
It's at section 9. You
G
say-
as in golf.
G?
I don't see it.
I don't see it.
Oh, it's,
I think it's on
well, section
page
6.
7.
It's page 7, yeah.
It's subsection G on page 7. It's right underneath the discussion we were having just before about the infrastructure rehabilitation for forest parks and recreation.
Okay. So Mike, please tell us again what you were looking for.
Mike or me?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I called you Mike, didn't I? I think I did that twice, actually. Chris, you.
Yeah, I'm the better commissioner, with all due respect.
He lives in South Ural.
You look like a Mike. Your name should be Mike.
Oh, great. And so we're looking for the language update so that it clearly goes to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So if you, the first sentence, it would read, the following amounts are appropriated in fiscal year 2023 to the Agency of Natural Resources for the Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Fish and Wildlife for the projects described in this subsection.
Yeah, it doesn't say Fish and Wildlife, it says Agency of Natural Resources. Yeah. So they could.
Right, so then otherwise it would go right to the central office, but it's really intended for Fish and Wildlife.
Yep. That's probably a good idea to make that catch. Becky, you got that?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything
And so
else
then
you
I
wanted?
guess if you wanted, I would want to just, I'm sorry, Senator.
Sure, I was gonna ask, is there anything else you wanted us to know about?
Well, I guess it's important for you to understand that I could go through each item, but with respect to the money that's been allocated already, as I've testified prior to this, the amount of money, the cost for some of these projects have gone up. And so I'll give you an example. The outbuilding down at Dead Creek, we were hoping to get bids around the $400,000 to $500,000 range, and they're coming in around $700,000. And so
We had a paving
Yep,
job.
that's right.
Went up 66%.
66% on a paving job.
when we were talking about this internally, I said, I'm sure Senator Mazza can understand this. With the cost of materials, in AOT's world going up. So we may want to use some of these funds to be able to close out those expenditures in the next year. So I just wanted to make you aware. I can also go over the projects if you want. I think we can also just send you the spreadsheet, whatever your pleasure is, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm not sure how to phrase this appropriately. You have, as much as everybody else on this list, talked about with us the various projects that are being requested with various numbers. Everybody, it seems, all at once is in the same boat with the rising costs. And unless we completely rehash all of the conversation and try to adjust all the numbers again, I'm not sure how to make changes. I think everybody's gonna have to look at their own departments and say, all right, we got X number of dollars, what can we jettison from this list in order to move on and be done? So if you're gonna provide I'm happy to hear some highlights of the projects you would intend to hang on to at all costs, but I don't know how we're gonna be able to present you with more money that you're trying to make everything happen that you initially proposed. I don't know if that clarifies.
They're gonna have to use what they got.
Yeah.
That's everybody's doing, AOT is doing.
So
the same thing.
I don't think the ask is for additional funds at this. I'm sorry, I don't think the ask is for additional funds, just that conceptually. So for instance, there are some projects that from previous years we're not able to accomplish unless we move some of the money. So some of these projects aren't going to be able to be accomplished, but in order to make sure that the critical ones are. So for instance, there's some work at the fish hatchery in Bennington. There's the outbuilding at Dead Creek. These are high priority items. And so I would say, I guess the way to look at it is I wouldn't be surprised if we came back in a year and said, yeah, this project fell off because we had to make some prioritization decisions as we move through.
Yeah, so is there language change that you need in order to be flexible for those efforts to jettison something, or?
I'm not aware that there is, but I'm going to look to Steve Gomez just to say whether I'm correct in saying that.
Yep.
Yep, we do not need a language change, just wanted to make you all aware of kind of the situation on the ground, so.
Well, the beauty of all that is I'm not going to be on the committee next year, so it's not my problem.
Well, I think the real beauty of it is probably you're not gonna be all standing there by yourself with the
No.
same problem.
Right, yeah, the whole capital bill is loaded with people who are going to be exactly the same boat.
Right.
But I want to make
we just wanted to make sure that we were upfront with you about that, and that next year, whoever is on this committee doesn't go, well, you didn't tell us. We want to be transparent and open and honest.
Appreciate that.
The executive branch support group is gonna start meeting in June.
Is that a 12-step process? All right, anything
We
else
did
you
not
want
have
to?
money in the budget to create. There's no money in the budget for a fish and wildlife safe space. So we'll have to do it at the State House, I think.
Come to Orleans, you'll be safe up there, Commissioner.
Well, apparently we've got a lot of space.
I hope so. Just so you know, Senator Benning, you're safe tomorrow because I don't legislators just yet.
I missed that last piece.
Yeah.
Well, you said you were worried about having arrows flying at you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't think archery season's opened yet.
That hasn't prevented this crowd from doing things that aren't necessarily legal.
Commissioner Eric and Secretary Flynn have camp. They go hunting and fishing, so I want to make sure they follow the rules. You know,
Yeah.
I check with them quite often, you know,
Absolutely.
they gotta
Just
check.
a reminder, by the way, tomorrow's the opening day of trout season.
It is.
Oh, make sure they're the right size. Well, they gotta be 20 inches or 4 pounds or something or what?
Oh, it depends, yeah. I think I'll get out there tomorrow on my way home from Orleans.
The
See
inside
what we can
information
do.
in New Orleans, commissioners, May 1st. May 1st is the inside information in New Orleans to catch a rainbow.
All right, gentlemen,
Well,
appreciate you coming by on Friday afternoon.
Don't forget, Lake Champlain is good for fishing. All right,
Great.
have a good day, senators.
Across from my
Thank you.
store.
All right, take care.
See you.
Dan, how'd you like to join us and introduce us to our new spreadsheet?
Sure. I will try to be as quick as possible so you guys can get out, enjoy your weekend, and see me for a couple days.
Nobody here that will chastise you.
So I attempted to redesign the spreadsheet. Hopefully it makes some sense, but I think it's helpful to let me sit here and just walk you through some of the high level ways how it's spread out, I guess, or how it's laid out. So at the top of the page, you see two boxes that are colored. The yellow means that this is a difference from that the governor's request has from Act 50, which is the capital bill that passed last year. If it's red, that means it's a difference between the House and the governor. And then I'll just point out, I'll just go through the columns. So on the far left, the line number, and then there's a column for what the section number is in Act 50. There's a column for what the section number is in H739, which is the budget adjustment. And then you got the various agencies. So over here is where you see something new that wasn't in prior spreadsheets, and I've added back the information from the governor's request. So the first two columns here where you see a lot of X's, this is something I actually added. I felt like what the administration brought over to the House wasn't extremely clear. They did a lot of different color coding. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna try just creating these two columns and have X's where there's either a new or amended project. So that's a difference from Act 50, or if there was a shift in the funding source. So that would mean the governor might have proposed moving something from the capital bonded dollars to either the cash fund that was proposed or to ARPA. So that's what those two columns mean. FY22 capital expenditures, and then FY23, there are two columns. One is for the expenditure of capital, bonded dollars. The other is for the expenditure of cash funded dollars. And then one thing I want to point out as far as the shading, some of the yellow shading is just indicating that if you look back to Act 50, maybe I'll point you out to a specific example. On line 6, where there's statewide planning, use, and contingency. So in Act 50, there was 500,000 appropriated in FY23 from bond dollars. The governor has proposed the same amount, but just 300,000 of that being bonded dollars, 200,000 being cash fund dollars. So I highlighted that just to show you that it's being paid for differently, but the amount of it, the expenditure isn't changing.
So this assumes that there is a cash fund.
But the House did this, the House restored the monies anyways, correct?
So, yeah, the House didn't do the cash fund, but they have kept the amount of spending the same for all of those. I think all of those categories. One might have decreased, but for them, I think by and large, they just took what was funded in the cash fund and wrapped it back into the capital bonded dollar funding. And then in the columns 12, 13, that's just where you can see dollar-wise how the House is different from Act 50. And then columns 14 and 15 is just how the House is different from the governor. And the only thing I didn't include was how the governor was different from Act 50, but I'm trying to make sure I don't give you too much information. So hopefully.
This is a lot more helpful.
Okay, good, I'm glad. The only, let's see, the only other thing that I want to point out is go to the very end, on page 5, I have sort of as a standalone section of this, just the expenditure of the ARPA capital, coronavirus capital projects dollars. It has no bearing on any other part of the capital bill. It's just where those appropriations live and where I've included them. And you'll now see what the governor proposed spending, and then what the House has. And yeah, just ignore the column headings because the governor doesn't spend from the cash fund. It's ARPA, and the House doesn't spend bond dollars. It's all just ARPA capital projects.
Yeah, 48 million in the budget.
And I forgot to highlight these. So when we do another spreadsheet, I'll make sure those they're highlighted so you can see the House difference from the government. But I forgot to do that one piece. So anyway, that's I think all I have.
Compliments on the color scheme.
Thank you. And then, yeah, once you start making changes, that'll be, a shade of blue or green, so you can see how you're different from the House. Okay. I may have to hide some more columns just to get it to all fit, but they're right there.
No, it's actually very helpful. This committee, just so you know, is going to take a stab at trying to reconstruct what the governor had originally proposed. And it's going to be, I guess, extremely helpful if you and Eric and Becky are able to help us find, I think we need roughly 3.9 million on our end. And figuring out where the House put that money back in after deviating from the governor's thinking. The next question is whether or not we can get appropriations to find, as I understand it, 6 on their end in order to come up with the national number of 10. So I don't know how far we're going to get, but if we can't get that far, next question will be, is there a happy medium somewhere where we could strike some different arrangement than the full amount that was originally proposed by the governor and come up with a scheme for future years to try to keep that cash component going? I don't know if I'm articulating it in a way that makes sense to you, but those are the 3 options I see. Either we leave it just the way the House has it and say goodbye to it, or we come up with the same scheme that the governor did and try to figure out how to do that. And then the alternative is to try to figure out if there isn't a halfway medium somewhere in between. In the event that you can plug all that, all 3 of you can start plugging that into your heads. I would very much like to have this bill out of here in 2 weeks. That's the mission, if you will. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns about that?
Well, Chair.
So just so I'm clear, your hope is, because the governor had proposed not spending the entirety of the bonding capacity, you're hoping to leave 3.9 million unutilized, and then hoping the Senate Appropriations restores 6 million of the cash fund.
It is a tall order by all measures. There are 3 other committees that we are dealing with. One is our counterparts in the House, the other are the 2 appropriations committees. And I know Adam Gresham is currently working on Jane to try to get her to see a different way of moving forward.
Get hit from every side possible.
That's okay.
I'm just saying, the faster we do it, the better, because she's got a list a mile long of everybody wants more.
Yeah, we felt her out a little bit today after our
Just about
transportation thing.
Probably the best way to approach it, this is more complicated for you guys, is to have 3 alternatives ready to go, and then we start our negotiations on the one that the governor had originally proposed, and let ourselves get browbeaten back down if we have to. But coming up with 3 different proposals, outlining those 3 suggestions would be very helpful.
Her budget's gonna be out next Friday.
I don't know what to do about that.
Well, no, but I was just saying, we've got you say 2 weeks, her budget, because that's why we gotta get our T-bill out next Thursday. Her budget's out next Friday.
So, is that realistic?
She's.
Oh, no, she's on-
That's why I did a little homework for you today, Chair. I mean, I asked her specifically, and she said it's gonna be out, so, I mean, if we're gonna do this, we should maybe be thinking about Tuesday and, the early part of this week to see what we could do.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, I can think of 3 options, you know, simplest being, you just create the cash fund in statute in your bill. It's there. They may not get funding and appropriations, but at least you've created it. The second option would be you create the cash fund with the criteria for how money would flow into the fund in the future, because the way the governor proposed it, it doesn't actually begin to flow in automatically until I think FY24. So even if you don't get the 6 million of one-time money in FY23, you've at least created the fund and you've created the future funding criteria. And then option 3 is you do exactly what the governor had proposed with the one-time money, although, you know, that's, I mean, you have to wait for appropriations to do that.
Yeah,
We don't need.
we shut those down.
Probably ought to shut down all witness
Yeah,
testimony.
that's what I did. I shut us down and that's it. I just going with it. We have.
Does anyone know what was the reasoning in the House for not having the cash?
They said
fund?
it's not there.
Well, It seems like a good idea.
I think
frankly.
I think it's a lot like this, Senator McCoy. I think it's a lot like what you guys run into your hospital up there. They had all their monies ready to do a hospital expansion. There was set, all this cash was sitting there. And then the care board came in and said, you're not gonna have what are you doing with all that cash? Boom, grabbed it out of there. And I think it's the same understanding here, if I had to guess, is that, what kind of, you know, what I hear in the hallway is, oh, you got this big slush fund, what are you guys gonna do with that money? You know, and I think that's what it is. It's a little mistrust about what's gonna actually go on with that money.
And I think the hard part is, I mean, what no one's realistically talking about, but we have $16 million in bond premium, and that's because interest rates are below whatever we're probably issuing 5% coupon bonds, which, you know, typically that means a bond sells at it's called $100. You know, it's probably selling at 103 right now because that's where the rates are. When those rates back up, which they are, you're not going to get that extra play money, and we've lived off that the last decade because rates have been low, if not longer, and so, you know, that bonding, you know, you're just not going to be able to. I think you want to start saving for the rainy days, and the rainy days are coming.
Well, it's just, if you can, you're always better off paying cash.
Well, and Eric's the one that really kind of opened my eyes on it, and it's like this. So not every project that they go out to bid on gets funded, but yet you spend the money to go out and do so you could be sitting on what it was, $3.9 million or whatever it is worth of monies that never got built. And so you're rolling that money into another project. Why do you want to carry that over when you can pay for cash with that money and be done with it? I mean, you shouldn't be financing that money on a project that never got built to begin with. Is it really capital money at that point in time? So that's why to have this option is, I mean, that alone right there makes sense.
Well, we all agree the option is preferred. The $64,000 question is,
Well,
will Jane go along with that?
I'm inclined to agree. Okay, then, but the reason I wanted to know what was the reasoning in the House?
Okay.
What have I not thought about?
If you guys are convinced Jane wants to have a bill out by the end of next week, we gotta have an answer from her by Tuesday afternoon. So I could do a little Alice Emmons subcommittee appointment. Have the 2 of you guys work on her Tuesday morning while she's in committee with me and see if we can't get her committed to something.
I'm gonna bring this one up and ask her about it. I forgot this morning, but I gotta ask her about it. See what her thoughts are. She'll know one way or the other if she's open, closed, or.
Yeah, if she's closed,
Yeah,
it's,
no, that's what I'm saying.
we need
It's
to do
gonna,
something.
she's not gonna beat around the bush. She's gonna get an answer like that.
Let's get it in there. Just so you know, Wednesday, I've got pre-trials all afternoon. I can't. be
Oh,
here.
darn.
So I get the chair.
You get the chair. Thursday, we should have commitments from everybody. We should be able to decide how we're gonna tweak this thing.
Is there any night next week that we're gonna go later than normal, just grab schedules?
I have no plan unless you guys tell me there's something.
Okay, this is the area we're gonna ask about, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right, good.
great. We are done for the afternoon, kids.
Wait.
Thank you all. Bye, Beck.